Hi, this is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. So, what I want to talk about today is definitely inspired by a recent incident, but isn't just about that, because it's a larger and, I think, really important subject. We have talked about magical psychosis in the past, and how one can get absorbed by some types of magical thinking that can lead to self-destructive behavior and not turn out well. We've talked about magic and what magic can and cannot do, but it seems that the subject is important enough that we should address it again. Ian is going to address it from Barden's perspective in a different video. I'm going to address it from my perspective in this video. And I had been thinking about this before the incident took place in any event, because, like I said, it's a rather important thing to consider. I had seen a few things on the internet recently that sort of brought the subject to mind, and one of them was a statement by someone who was extremely confident about his facts that weren't facts, and had absolutely no doubt whatsoever that he had the correct answer to everything in existence. I was very impressed with his specificity. He had dates and times and numbers of years and so forth that he spouted out. Everything he said, there was like no room to maneuver, no question about his conclusions or how he came to them or anything. Had to do with us being in a Matrix-like situation or whatever, not actually living on a real planet, and that reality is reset every 700 and some odd years and whatnot. And it struck me the way he spoke about it, the language that he used, and like I said, the absolute specificity. It's like, these things happen during these dates, this number of years apart. These things happen on these dates, these other numbers of years apart, and, I've woken up and I've seen the light and I know what's really going on. And that's not the only type of incident that I've seen recently online where someone has expressed a viewpoint with absolute certainty and no internal questioning about their conclusions. I know in the last show, one of the things that I said was that I have absolutely no doubt about my actual experiences, what I felt when they happened, and the fact that they did happen. But the conclusions that I come to based on those experiences is always up for modification if I understand things from a different point of view. I am never 100% certain about any of my conclusions when it comes to that. For example, the one that really brought that home to me was when I was assisting the police finding a woman who had disappeared here in our area, and I went to the local beach first because a client prompted me to do so. And because that's where they found her abandoned vehicle, and I think 100 people and dogs had looked for her in the area, had not found her. So I already had that piece of information in my mind. And when I went there, I felt very strange, didn't feel normal. I was very spaced out. I felt a lot of physical sensations, like I felt a pain in the back of my head. I felt a pain between my shoulder blades. I saw everything go dark. And so I had all of these feelings. And then my brain started trying to make a narrative that would fit all of these feelings. Since I knew that they had looked for her in a huge search, they'd spent several days looking for her and had not found her, and that dogs were involved, my subconscious, I'm sure, assumed that that meant she couldn't be there. So she wasn't there, but yet I was having all these feelings, so that would mean that these things happened to her there, but then she must have been taken somewhere else. So my brain cooked up a scenario where she was hit in the back of the head, thrown into a trunk of a car, landed hard on something in the vehicle, and hit her shoulder, and then the trunk was shut, and then it went dark, and that was the end of that. And so that was my initial conclusion of what had happened to her. So that says right off the bat that it's easy for us to take information in and then rearrange it in a way that will make sense to our brain as to, like, this is an evolution of a story, and it has a flow to it, and it fits the sensations that I had in my body. Therefore, it's highly likely that that is true. So I contacted my client. She contacted the state police officer who was involved in looking for her. And we went back out there, and I went with him. So the night before we left, I dreamt we found her body. And I thought, yeah, I don't think so. That's probably wish fulfillment, which it could have been. And we got out there, and I went and sat where she had sat. I tried to tune into how she felt. She was definitely suicidal. She was thinking about not feeling good here on planet Earth and wanting to go somewhere else. Walked over to where she had parked her car, walked across the parking lot, stood looking over the ocean, and knew that this was like her favorite spot to look out from, one of her favorite places on the coast. She was a local, so she lived here too. And then the wind stopped blowing, and her body was close enough for us to smell her. And she was right there. I walked right to her. I had no idea that I was doing that. I really didn't understand that I was following along in her footsteps, that I sat on the, behind the gazebo for the length of time it took her to write the letters to her loved ones and telling them goodbye, and then walking over to her car and putting her shoes in there because she knew she wasn't going to need them anymore, and putting the letters in her car so that they would find them, and then walking down the path a little bit from where I stood to look out over, and sitting in front of a small tree off the trail, taking an overdose of some kind of a chemical overdose that made her body go into convulsions, at which point, when her body went into convulsions, her head hit the tree roots or whatever it was that was under her, and so did her shoulders, and her body buried itself underneath the leaves and the debris that was there, and everything went dark. So my point is that the feelings that I had were quite accurate, 100%. It was my mind and my thinking processes that made me draw the wrong conclusion. And I think this is a problem for a lot of us when it comes to magical experiences. We don't have enough experience or written material or someone to talk to or whatever to try and figure it out. It's very subjective. It's not scientific in the sense that you can't really put it under a microscope and repeat it as an experiment, because it's like this amorphous kind of stuff. And because of that, and because magic in itself is a part of fantastical thinking, in the sense that we're imagining things that we can do and happen that we can't necessarily prove to someone else, it makes us prone to coming to the wrong conclusions. So there's that. So then there is the tendency for us to judge everyone by ourselves as part of this equation. When we meet someone, and for me, my problem has been assuming that people are honest and forthright and aren't duplicit, because we judge people by ourselves. And as a whole, I'm honest. I mean what I say what I mean. I'm not trying to trick someone into believing something and then laugh at them behind their backs and go, ha ha, I fooled you. This is not who I am. Not everyone is like me. In fact, most people aren't like me. And so if someone, say, is a liar, and that's a regular thing, lie to themselves, lie to other people, whatever it happens to be, and then someone tells them something, on some level they're going to assume the person is lying, because if they said that, it would be a lie, which makes it very difficult to get to know anyone, if you think about it. Regardless of what our personality is, whether it's a positive or negative trait, or what we perceive as positive or negative trait, we are still limited, especially initially, by our lack of experience of other different kinds of people and our ability to accept them for who they are and what they present. It is a struggle, no doubt about it. Which makes it very difficult to actually be accurate and clear about anything. I've had any number of times that people have done readings for me and they've been so far off base, I've been quite astonished. And I think that the projection thing, and assumptions about who people are based on what they're wearing, what their age is, what their perceived financial bracket might be, and so forth. There's a lot of things that go into us jumping to a conclusion, making an assumption about who someone is. And that's another reason why it's very difficult to get to know anyone. And then we have our desires to be not ourselves. And you can add that into the mix, where you want to be more liked or more appreciated or more beautiful or more feared, or whatever the trait or happens to be. We don't want to be ourselves, is the bottom of that. We want to be someone other than who we actually are. We feel like who we are is a failure or is not meeting up to some kind of a standard somehow. Therefore, we must become someone different. I met somebody in the Blue Zoo where I lived. We had 10 people living in the house at a time. There were 7 bedrooms. So me and my 2 children were 3 of them, so there were 7 other people that lived in the house at any given time besides me and my kids. And there was one woman there who was a nurse, and she wanted me to give her a list of a personality for her to become. I was quite baffled by this request because I don't understand it, and I freely admit this is something I have a hard time understanding, because my goal is always to become myself, not someone else. And I couldn't. It was just, I couldn't do it. There was just no way. She also had some other bizarre kind of projections. We worked by consensus, and unfortunately a lot of people don't understand what consensus is, including the people that were in our house where we were using consensus. And you can block people from doing anything when you're using consensus, both right and wrong. I have a whole video on the consensus process if you want to know more. And we all decided we wanted to be able to lock our front door. And she blocked us. And the reason she blocked us was because she had been successfully raped inside of a house that had a locked door. And then she had sat and calculated how much time and effort it takes to unlock and lock a door every time you use it through an average lifetime, and determined that locking the door didn't stop that from happening. Therefore, there was no reason to lock the door and waste this imaginary period of time that she had calculated in her life that would now become a pointless act. So no one else could lock the door. So that was the end of that. But I thought her mental gymnastics around that were interesting and flawed, to say the least, and, projecting forward into time this few seconds of time it took and calculating it all out. So, you see examples of that kind of thing happening, I think, on a pretty regular basis if you're paying attention. But she's a good example of that type of projection where you take a small thing, in this case locking and unlocking a door, and project some deeper meaning into it, like the only reason to lock a door is to prevent someone from coming in your house and raping you, and then deciding based on some imaginary factor whether it's a useful act or not. So, I would say that you add magic to the mix, and now you've got the fantastic potential of using magic in your everyday life. The question becomes, what can magic actually do? Would be the first thing to try and understand. Because according to the movies, you can control the weather, you can control what you look like in an instant, you can control how other people feel about you, whether they like you or hate you, or you can make people do whatever you want. And as far as I'm concerned, none of that is true. Yes, you can sometimes affect the weather. If you have enough if you have enough people together who know what they're doing, you can affect the local weather where you are. Sometimes. But whenever it is that we're trying to do something, we have to take into account that there are like about 8 billion people living on this planet right now, and every single one of them has their own particular needs and desires and wants and thoughts about what should and shouldn't happen. Because you don't live here by yourself. We are not isolated and alone. We may feel like we're isolated and that nobody understands us, certainly, but we don't live in isolation. So being a witch or a pagan or a magic practitioner or a ceremonialist or whatever the path might be does not stop your neighbor across the street from abusing their animal. It does not stop anyone in your neighborhood from getting injured or hurt. It does not stop you from being harassed necessarily. It can change how you respond to harassment, but it's not going to change other people. If you think that you can make someone like you, you're deluded, because the only real reason someone will like you is because you are likable. And if you are a manipulative individual who is using magic to try and make someone like you, you are at the core not trustworthy and not a likable person. So if you want people to like you, behave yourself and be a likable individual. And that starts with you. If you don't like yourself, you're certainly not going to like anyone else. And if you can't love yourself, you can't love anyone else, because the way that whole process works with the projection, if you have a lack in yourself, then you're going to be looking to fill that void that you have in yourself with something outside of yourself. And you can call it religion, you can call it magic, you can call it, it doesn't matter what you call it, a relationship with a significant other, love, all of these things. If the reason you're looking for them and wanting them and needing them is because you have a lack in yourself that you're not dealing with, there will be nothing that will satisfy. And I know we've talked before about why love magic is a bad idea as far as doing love magic on other people. It's the same as the like thing in reality. If you think that you can use magic to make someone love you, you're an abusive person. And that's just the bottom line. You're controlling, manipulative, abusive, and really shouldn't be around. It's not okay. And if you don't see that, then you need to go into therapy. Of course, if you really are that way, you might not see it anyway, because we know 4% of the population are sociopaths, and they won't listen to anything I have to say, so I'm not talking to them. So what magic can do, there's a lot. Magic can do a lot. Magic can give you a sense of control over yourself. It can give you the ability to see who you are and to transform yourself into who you want to be, because you don't have to stay where you are. No matter what kind of state you're in, whether you're in a state of panic, or you think everybody is attacking you, or you think that you're cursed, or you think no one likes you, you think everyone is against you, you have persecution complex, you're not lovable, that's why no one likes you. Whatever it happens to be, society's not giving you what you want and you need, and, mean society, it's all their fault. Whatever it is, this in here is the part you have control over. This is the part you can change. I can't make my neighbor take care of his dog unless I call the authorities and turn him in and they decide to take his dog away, which I've been thinking of doing because I really feel sorry for that dog across the street. He's a Great Dane, for heaven's sakes, and he's stuck in a tiny little room and can't go outside because he breaks down the fence and then wanders the streets growling at people. He should not live in my neighborhood. This is not a good place for that poor dog, and I blame his people, not his dog, not the dog. The dog doesn't have much of a choice. But getting into a magical way of thinking, doing magic all the time and so forth, can unfortunately disassociate you from reality. The shared reality that we're all a part of. There's a lot of different kinds of realities out there that people are very much attracted to. And I believe that most of that attraction has to do with that internal lack, that feeling of not belonging, like I'm in the wrong place. I used to think I was an alien. I seriously considered it for a while because nothing made sense. Nothing that people did made sense. The way people acted, I knew it was wrong. I had that inner knowing, like this isn't the way things should be, or the way they could be. There's something wrong. I felt the universe must hate me because I was in this position where all these horrible people existed and they did things to me. So there must be something wrong with me, which is normal when you're a child. That's a very normal mindset to have when you are a young person. You project your entire being onto the entire world around you. So everyone in it and everything in it is a part of you. So everything that happens in it is because of you. It has to be, right? So the bird in the tree falls out and dies. It's my fault. I get mad at my neighbor, girlfriend, or whatever, and she falls down and scrapes her knee. It's my fault. I decide not to go to church one day because I want to stay home and ride my bicycle, and then I go down a hill and forget how to use the brakes and I hurt my finger. It's my fault. I mean, everything becomes your fault. Everything becomes because of you. So if you don't grow out of that, which those of us who've been abused tend not to grow out of, that particular emotional state, which we talked about in boundaries. The last video I did about expanding boundaries, and that's the physical, emotional boundary from that part. Then we continue to project that idea out into the universe where everything that happens is meaningful and about us. And that's not the case. Most people don't know you even exist. Most people wouldn't even care if they knew you did. The only people that are going to care are the people who actually know you and are close to you. Not necessarily your neighbors. They may not even know who you are, what your name is, or anything else about you. So your importance goes way down in the scale. And some people get into magic because they want to be more important. They feel that they need to be recognized. So, okay, when I considered myself an alien, it's because of the way people act, and it's not right. And then, as I thought about it, I mean, I felt like I had been abandoned in a hellscape torture chamber somehow by being here. And this was like some horrible punishment because I was obviously evil. Otherwise, the universe wouldn't treat me this way. And so, that was part of it too. And then as I started to, I don't know exactly how I did that, but as my mind started to expand away from me being here, one, by myself and everything's about me, I started to get a different perspective, and I changed my definition of human. Sometimes changing your internal definition of something can actually have a pretty intense impact on your existence. And I realized, my realization is that being a human being is not just being in a human body. There's a lot more to it than that. Being a human being means having compassion and empathy, caring about people, also having boundaries. There's like a whole process. It's kind of like you're born knowing how to breathe, but you can learn how to breathe better. You can take classes. There are things that you can do to become a more complete person. And figuring out things for yourself, becoming who you want to be, this is part of what it means to me to be a human being. So I believe that most people out there aren't human. I don't think they're aliens from another planet or another galaxy or shapeshifters or any of that other stuff. I think that they just haven't decided that they want to become truly human, and they're not doing the work to get there. They either don't know, they don't care, they're distracted, they're confused, they're mentally ill. I don't know. It doesn't matter because the only person I can do anything about is me. And so when it comes to the reasons why people get into magic and what they think magic can do for them, that is a falsehood. Magic doesn't make you all powerful over other people and over the environment. The environment exists whether you're alive or dead. It doesn't care. The stars don't care whether you're alive or dead. Colliding universes, exploding black holes, and supernovas, whatever is going on out there, you are less than insignificant. You're less than a grain of sand. It doesn't care. And if you think that it does, you're doing this wrong. And not that the universe of spirit doesn't have a softer side and will try and help you if it can because of how we have organized things in our own, mental reality, spiritual reality, or what have you. But truthfully, the rest of the universe doesn't really give a care. And they're not coming to save us. The only people who can save us is ourselves. So I came around to the idea that this actually wasn't a prison sentence. Because I remember when I lived up north even, watching the Northern Lights and stuff, asking, when can I go home? And that was the woman that I found her body. That's what she was asking. She felt like she had been abandoned in a strange place and she didn't fit in with people. And that's why she killed herself, to go home. That was her feeling that she had. And I've had that feeling and I know it. But it's not true. That's because I needed to do more work on me. And get away from David at that point. which brings us back around to knowing other people and how difficult it is. Because I was thinking about that. Most people never get to know a single other human being in their lifetime. They have acquaintances. They have sometimes people they manipulate. They can have power, money, influence. They can decide whether someone, is going to make a living or is going to get fired, depending on what kind of position they are in society. But they don't know people. They don't know anyone. Most of them don't know themselves, so how can they know anyone else, right? So with David was the, I guess you would call him, not an inspiration, but he was sort of a catalyst for bringing Moira out and me starting to channel. But he didn't see me. He saw me, the channel, to something else. I wasn't important. It was Moira, her words, what she said, how she could influence people, how she might be able to help save the planet or whatever. How it could give him a reason to get his PhD in psychology and do his PhD dissertation. How he encouraged, I say with a tongue-in-cheek, me to continue to do the channeling several times a week and just keep it going and so forth, which I definitely learned a lot from. But it became clear later on that he never was capable of giving me room to become me, myself, more of who I wanted to be. In fact, that's the reason why he unfriended me on Facebook, which I found quite hysterical. You've changed too much. Nothing personal. I'm like, I don't know, that's about as personal as you can get, right? Not that I wasn't a witch when I knew him. But it's a good example of projection. He never saw me. He never saw what I was going through. And he wouldn't believe when I started to actually tap into joy. In fact, it was when we first got together, because I had just left Rick, my daughter's father, was when I encountered the tree that comforted me and realized that maybe I was alone when it came to people, but I wasn't alone when it came to other forms of consciousness, and that there were other forms of consciousness out there that I could interact with. And as I continued to progress along that moment in time that gave me that glimmer of hope and belonging to this earth here and now on the planet as a part of this biosphere, and started to experience joy, he didn't believe in my joy. He thought it was fake. He only believed in my pain, in my tears, in my agony, in my confusion, because he was a psychologist and that was something he thought he could fix. He saw me as a project, something to remake into whatever it was that he thought would be good for the planet or good for him, I don't know. But still, he never knew me. And that's the reason why I parted ways with him. It's like, this is not working. So, being known by someone is like a huge gift. Absolutely. And Ian was the first person in my life who actually wanted to know me, all of me. Good parts, niggly parts, rough parts, joyful parts, sad parts, whatever parts I have. All of them are part of me, and he loves me. Not for what I can do for him, or what I can be for him, or any of that other stuff, but just because I am me. I am unique. We are all unique. We are all individual and amazing beings of all sorts of things. And that was a gift I never thought I'd get. So for all of us out there who have not received that, it's possible. But the trick is meeting someone who is emotionally available and has enough of a, I don't know what to call it, a desire to know someone for who they actually are and to listen to what they say instead of interrupting them a few seconds in order to get their point across, because it's for them a competition of ideas instead of a sharing of information and knowledge to get to know who someone is and where they're coming from. I've always been interested in that when it comes to meeting people. I'm always curious about how they come to their conclusions and what kind of experiences that they've had that have drawn them to that conclusion. I don't always agree with their conclusions, but that's why we're all different. So Ian is fond of saying you can't make good decisions based on bad information. And if you're not actually getting to know someone else or yourself, any decision you make is going to be a bad decision because you don't have good information. How can you make a choice about what you want to do, what you want to be, who you want to be with, how you want to proceed in the world, what part do you want to play in the dance of creation and society and your circle of people that you might influence? If you don't know who you are, there's no way to make a good decision if you don't know who you are. There's no way to decide who you want to be if you don't know who you are. There's no way for you to be with someone else if you don't know who you are, because if you don't know who you are, you're not going to know who they are, because you won't be able to see them. They'll be a reflection of different parts of you that you're either looking for or worried to find or whatever. It's a huge job to become a human being. There's no doubt about it. Therapy is important. It helps. One step. Magic, I think, is important. It helps. Again, it's just one part of what we do. And the being able to reshape your own spirit being into something that you are proud of, something that you can admire. Doesn't mean you're losing your grip on reality and becoming full of your own ego if you're doing it right. It's a process. And, trying to get rid of human emotions, it's not a good idea. We have all those feelings for a reason. They're there to keep us safe. They're hardwired into our DNA, as my granddaughter said earlier when we were talking about the subject. Jealousy is a normal human emotion. It's not something you have to overcome. What you need is a partner who believes the same way you do about partnership. Not someone who's trying to get you to overcome your failings as a human being because you don't want to see them with someone else. Anger is a normal human emotion too, and anger is there to highlight that something is wrong and we need to take care of it. Anger out of control is not good. Any of these things out of control, jealousy out of control is not good, greed out of control is not good. It's like balance. It's all about the balance between all of these things. And repeating that something is wrong and that you know what it is doesn't make it true. That's another thing. Just because you repeat an untruth over and over and over again doesn't make it more true. And that is very obvious when it comes to magic, especially when people jump to conclusions. We had some problems in our last live show. Some weird interference happened. There were quite a few of you who actually experienced that interference. We couldn't find anything at our end that explained it. My suspicion is that it was the solar flare we just had, and that it was in the lines. One of our viewers thought it was a personal attack, that we were sending our protector through the phone lines and the internet, I guess, to physically attack this individual because we were mad. We have no idea why this person thinks this, because that's not who we are and we have nothing to do with it. Hopefully, they will be able to think this through and get some help, because that's not what's going on. The communication that they sent, every other word was, this is what happened, I know this is what happened, I have no doubt that this is what happened, I know that you did it, I know this, repeated over and over and over again, probably about 10 times in a single email. Doesn't make it true. It's a projection. What's the word? That's not the right word. Thinks everybody's after this individual. Makes me wonder what they actually think about things. And, it's if it's a projection of other people, that means it's coming from the source. The individual who thinks this probably would be a person who would do this if they thought they had the ability to do so. It's a question. We don't know. But someone asked what I do if I'm being harassed on the internet by trolls or whatever. And I tell the truth. That's what I do. And that's what I did. Just only one of the reasons why this subject came up. I don't want this individual to think that this is all about what happened, because it's not. Because really, it's not that important to me as an individual. I have nothing to do with the phone lines, or the internet, or the power grid, or the power going to somebody's house. I am not that all-powerful. If I could do that, what would I do with it? Attacking people would probably not be high on my list. So I encourage everybody to sit and think about the sense of what they're doing. And, you know enough from my videos to know that I'm psychic. I have abilities. I've had all kinds of bizarre and weird experiences. And yet, I'm still grounded. And you can be both, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You don't have to be taken off onto another planet, or another solar system, or another star system, in order to find people who you can relate to. There are some of us here. And this planet, this is our home. This is our place. These beings that we coexist with, whether they're physical or not physical, whether they're animal, human, non-human, plant, whatever they are our people. They are our responsibility, and this is our place. We should be taking care of it. And I know there's a lot of you out there that have ideas of how to take care of it, and ideas differ, but this is our space and our responsibility, however we choose to address it. And if we don't accept the fact that we are here, that we are part of this ecosystem, biosphere, spiritual reality, and so forth, if we're always trying to get away, go somewhere else, be someone else, we're not doing the job we're here to do. We're not learning how to become who we want to be and help as we can, whatever our role happens to be. Whether you're an ecologist or a scientist, whatever. It's like, and remember, just because you have a really strong idea and a feeling, it doesn't mean you're right. Just doesn't mean you're right. Always be willing to question your conclusions, and you will most likely have a happier life. So, anyway, that's probably enough of that. Just want everybody to, think it through. So, This has been Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. Blessed be.